They called themselves the Nature Boys, and they had names like Gypsy Boots. And they were the original hippies. Our Pay It Forward series, where I send our guest curator each month a recommendation based on what I know about they thought and what they felt about it. So now it's time to go over either to my past self and this month's guest curator to see what recommendation I gave them. So we come to the Pay It Forward recommendation, which is Eden at Bees, Eden's Island.
I'll take your word for that's how you pronounce his name.
100% sure on that one. Honestly, this is one of the most fascinating things I've researched. But I found it. Someone randomly on Twitter posted about this, and I'd listened to it, and I was like, this is an interesting album. And then read a little bit about him, and I was like, yeah, this will work for these guys.
Yeah, and
then reading about it properly, I was like, this guy's kind of a fascinating pioneer. Hippie living, I'd say, more than hippie music. There's definitely some parallels between what he recorded in 1960 and what became hippie music. But no one should go into it thinking, yeah, this is going to sound like Hendrix. Or it's much proto Beach Boys might work, but it's definitely more like a spiritual one with nature thing. So it's very stripped back, isn't it? And there's lots of field recordings, and
it is, and it's very unique
about communing with nature.
Yeah, it's very unique. It's of its time, but it's so out there that it's also not of its time, if that makes sense. I really liked it. I've never heard of it before. I followed the link that you sent through and listened to it a few times, but it's very much one of those you have to hear this records.
Yeah.
And again, coming back to what I was saying earlier about us all having this little bit of wanting to share, wanting to show off, wanting to be the one who's found this new thing, and this quest for this is it, I've found this new one that these guys are going to absolutely love. Had that have been pulled out post DJ set when we'd gone back to one of each other's houses to carry on listening to music, had that have been something that had been pulled out at 3-4 in the morning and played, it would have been everything stops, we're listening to this. And there's pats on the back for whoever found it, because it was very good. And it's not much about this guy on the internet, is there? You can't find much about him.
At first it was a little bit of a struggle, and then I hit the mother load because there was an interview with these guys who'd been making a documentary about it, and it was a good 2-3 pages long. So he wrote Nature Boy.
I did see that was one of the things in which
Nat King Cole 48 first gone on to become a jazz and pop standard, coincidentally also covered by George Benson on month 3. We get lots of these little links completely by chance, but yeah, he actually called this little group that he was in, they called themselves the Nature Boys, and they had names like Gypsy Boots. And they were the original hippies. They were vegetarians, they wore long beards and long hair. And that's why he changed his name to Abez or Abiz, because he's Jewish, but he's subverted his name into a word that essentially means God. So it's a very spiritual thing. But yeah, before he recorded this album, he was a songwriter. He was writing for Bertha Kitt, Frankie Lane, Sam Cooke.
Wow. Which presumably that allows you, once you've got something like Nature Boy that's been done by Nat King Cole, that gives you a certain amount of financial freedom to spend your days eating nuts and writing crazy music.
Which I think is why this album happens, is because he spent 12 years building up this stack of minor hits, and in that case it became a standard. And then he's able to make this album and basically do what he wants because he's paying for it all.
But this is something that's come across in our conversation a few times, though, that there are albums out there that just you can't believe have been made. And you either can't believe that they've not been found, or that they were given the opportunity to grow and find people and build their own mythology or whatever, and to have that freedom, that, as we say, that financial freedom to do what you want, a bit like People Under the Stairs that we were talking about there, a bit like DJ Format, and actually, now's my time, I'm going to make the album that I want to make, And if it shifts 10 units or 10,000 units, I've still done something of artistic merit that I will forever be proud of. And that's very admirable.
Definitely. And it feels very authentic to his beliefs. And yeah, and again, like I mentioned the Beach Boys earlier, but he was at the Smile sessions.
Oh, really?
Of him hanging out with Brian Wilson at the...
Just trying to get them into this hippie. Jeez, come on.
Yeah, like I say, that is that era of the Beach Boys where they very much started buying into all of that stuff. And it seems like he was at least there for a short period of time, and maybe it rubbed off on Brian Wilson. But I can see, while it's more of an Exotica sort of album, that yeah, maybe there was a little bit of Brian Wilson heard him, or Brian Wilson heard of him. Maybe that's more likely. Brian Wilson knew about the Nature Boys, or knew about him playing. He used to go around and play cafes, coffee shops and stuff. So it's possible he was just plodding around LA doing his thing. Brian Wilson tripped over him in a cafe, and who's this dude? And they ended up hanging out.
Or that Laurel Canyon scene, wasn't it? It was very, I don't know if incestuous is the right word, but there was certainly a lot of that musician lives over there, that guy lives over there, and I'm just going to go around and play and talk, and I'll see you in 5 days when I come down.
Yeah. And that's very much the impression I get from things like Smile, is maybe the reason it took so long for them to make those albums was, you know, obviously Brian was a little bit unwell, let's be honest, but also like they were probably just sitting around talking about stuff and noodling on instruments, and it was probably productive in terms of soaking lots of stuff up and learning lots of stuff. Not necessarily finishing an album that was the label were like, yeah, we'll put that out.
It's a great recommendation.
I mean, maybe meeting meant that Brian was more determined to see his vision through. He always seemed very stubborn about. He's very stubborn about Smile.
Good art should inspire more good art.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic recommendation. I think if there's, like I say, that could very much have fitted into the Hindsight collective of something brought to the table that the rest of us might not have heard. It's those things that we're always looking for, and we're talking about next year putting out a reissue, which we're currently talking about what it should be and what we want to do. And it will be something of that ilk, where it'll be something that just, unless we do it, who will?
That is a very cool note to end on, and I'm glad I've introduced you guys to something you haven't.
No, much appreciated.
Thank you all for watching this video. If you want to support Eclectic Selections and join our community, there are various ways that you can do that. Number one, you can like, comment, and subscribe right here on YouTube. This helps our video get noticed by the YouTube algorithm, and it helps other music lovers like you find great music. You can, two, follow us over on Twitter. Here you'll get the latest news, and you'll get extra recommendations. You'll be able to keep up to date with everything Eclectic Selections. You can join our code fee, which is just like Patreon, so you can support us, and you'll get access to extra content like private playlists with loads of recommendations, extra video recommendations from our guests, all that good stuff. And there's more coming in the future. Join our Discord community, where you can chat with other music lovers and myself about music and other subjects too. All the links for all of that down in the description in our link tree. Thanks again for watching, and until next Thursday, keep it eclectic.